Show number 20. We have made it a long way in quarantine. That is Billy Harner, the Director of Communications and Media Relations, bobbleheads, fun at the Brooklyn Cyclones. And my name is Keith Rad, the broadcaster. Whenever and wherever the Cyclones play baseball games, I'll be there. Well, glad you're here for today's Slice of Life. We'll start it off with our favorite social slice. Billy, you and I were thinking the exact same thing this morning. Both of us saw this video and heartwarming. What'd you find?
So at the risk of sounding like Uncle Rico, there's nothing quite like your senior year of high school. So some of my best memories growing up came during my senior year of high school. You know, your graduation, the time you spend with your friends, it's sort of your last carefree time. And once you go to college, you're a little more on your own, so you have a little more responsibility. But high school, you're still living with mom and dad, and you think you know everything and just live life. But for this year's graduating class, things are obviously a little bit different. There won't be a senior prom, or there won't be a graduation ceremony for most. But in Vanceboro, North Carolina, the graduating class of West Craven High School received the surprise when Principal Tabari Wallace and dozens of teachers from the school, accompanied by local sheriffs and firefighters, delivered custom yard signs for 220 graduating seniors. Each featured their high school graduation photo, like their yearbook photo. And the teachers and the principal were dressed in traditional cap and gowns, and they covered over 485 square miles of rural North Carolina to make sure that each student had a moment in the spotlight and were recognized for their hard work. Here, take a look.
This is for you, sweetheart. We're going to plant this here, okay? Education and the staff administration. I told you it was something to
So, you know, everybody's had that moment at graduation where, you know, they say your name, everybody cheers, your parents go nuts, your aunt and uncle make a scene, whoever it is. And it's something that sort of sticks in your mind forever. So this isn't that, but it's something, you know, they were still recognized for their hard work and their achievement. And the fact that the teacher and the principals drove all over the area, 485 miles, that's no joke. That's some gas money there. To do this was pretty great as well. I did some deep diving into this principal because he seemed like he was well loved by everybody. The guy won the North Carolina Principal of the Year award a couple of years ago. He played college football. He played professional football. So this guy, everything about him is team and the we above me. So great job by him and great job by all the teachers in the school as well.
Yeah, that was the kind of the first thing that popped up was like, Principal Wallace seems like he's going a little stir crazy at home, probably realizing, what can we do? How can I get out there and how can I make a difference and see my students again? So really cool to see that he's not just kind of pointing his finger, say, hey, do this and do that. He's the one that's out there presenting those graduation photos. Looking back, I mean, mine's not quite as far as yours. I think my high school picture was okay, but I mean, would you want to throw it back on your lawn again, Bill, the old days?
Probably not. I mean, I had this look that my sister called "you just smelled the fart face" for my high school senior picture. So probably not. You're right.
My favorite social slice. If you go back to since talking about childhood, that's kind of the theme of this social slice today. You go back, you remember. Now that's what I call music. They had CDs 1 through 4,000. Those awesome commercials that you'd see. There was a voice actor named Jack Baca, Jack, whatever your last name is, man. This was amazingly entertaining. Check this out. It's called Now That's What I Call Quarantine.
I'm 6 feet from my friend and I'm thinking maybe 6 feet ain't far enough.
Over 20 chart-topping hits with artists like Gautier.
When your stock started to get wrecked, you had told me that I'd still get checks. But Then I got the call from HR, I'd been furloughed.
I used to have to go to work, and now it's just some place that I used to go.
Remastered classics from the Beatles.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you something. You need to wash your hair.
So this was amazing. Obviously, he has other tunes on the album. Bill, 50 Cent, In Da Tub, Blink 182, What's That Day Again, The Killers, Mr. Inside, and then my favorite, Black Eyed Peas, Tonight's Gonna Be the Same Night, which is just amazing. I was listening to this all morning, and it's been stuck in my head, so it's catchy, and it works, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think this is sort of the final example that we all needed, that we've all lost our minds, that someone sat and came up with an entire CD worth of parodies about being stuck inside your house. Entertaining for sure, but I feel bad for this guy because he's probably in a dark place.
Time for some chicken parm heroes. I will go first. It is toy time. I found this story yesterday. The toy company Mattel debuted coronavirus frontline worker superhero action figures. These bad boys are sweet. Check them out. The nurses collection, then the doctors collection, the delivery drivers, and the EMT. So pretty cool. From the end of April through the entire month of May, if you buy one of these collector's items online, the net proceeds from the sale will be donated to hashtag First Responders First, which is a fund that helps out families of first responders with supplies, equipment, resources. And I was looking at this because it's pretty cool. I mean, we've all wanted a figurine of whatever we do. We all think we're superheroes in our own right. Obviously, this is amazing to celebrate all the frontline workers. And I don't know, Bill, I was thinking that bobblehead word was in the back of my mind. You are the bobblehead hero, but I thought you'd get a kick out of this too, because the whole figurine, action figure, collector's item, it's like right up there with what we like to do in the minor leagues.
Yeah, for sure. First off, I feel like this is definitely going to make its way to my house relatively soon. I'm probably going to have to order these for my kids. But two, I'm most excited about this whole thing, about everybody being stuck inside, and then what's going to come afterwards, the creative boom that's going to come in everything that we're doing, because we've been sort of pushed down and kept inside. So when we're let free, I think there's going to be a lot of good stuff that comes out of it. So particularly in our industry, where we're trying to honor these type of people throughout the year whenever baseball resumes. I'm excited to see what we've come up with while we've sort of been isolated ourselves. So for my social slice, I'm going to go into we already did social slice. For my chicken parm hero, this is only the 20th time we've done this, my mistake. So the former Yankee player and current Mets bench coach, Hensley Mullins, he was the first native of Curacao to reach the major leagues. And it's safe to say that he has never forgotten where he came from. So while this is all going on here in New York, Hensley Mullins has been back in his home of Curacao, which is a tiny island just east of Aruba and just north of Venezuela. So in the South Caribbean, I guess that would be. So the entire island's main economic boost, I guess, comes from tourism. So during the global pandemic, not a lot of people taking cruises, not a lot of people heading on vacation. So the entire island has sort of hit hard times. So while Hensley's been down there, he wakes up every morning. He does homeschooling with his wife and his kids, and then he heads to a local food pantry where he is assembling and distributing 1,200 items a day, starting off and hoping to get up to 10,000 at some point in the next week or two. And then he's also delivering these items to people throughout the island that are without gas and electricity. So they're not only making food and giving it to people that can make it to them, they're bringing it to people's homes when they can't make it. So just for some background, because I think sometimes we get a little tunnel vision here in New York because we're so impacted, it's hard to imagine or keep up with what's going on around the world. The entire island of Curacao has about 160,000 people living there. And they have imposed shelter-in-place restrictions with the exceptions made for travel between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And there have only been 16 COVID cases on the island with one fatality. So luckily they haven't been too impacted by the actual pandemic itself in terms of the disease. But obviously when your entire economy is sort of centered on tourism, you're taking a toll as well. So it's great to see someone in our Mets family doing great work, not just here in New York and what the Mets organization has been doing there, but he's back at home on Curacao and doing great work there as well.
Yeah, I love Curacao because in Curacao they speak Papiamento, and a lot of the people that live in Curacao are what you call polyglots. I did a story on an old Curacao player that I had back in Dayton in the minor leagues a couple of years ago. And basically, Papiamento is like Creole, Dutch, Spanish, all rolled into one. They speak like 4 languages. Like Didi Gregorius speaks like Spanish, Dutch, Portuguese, Papiamento. Crazy. So much love for Curacao. Hopefully that they keep those numbers down. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was interesting to me, like that Hensley Mullins was the first big leaguer from Curacao, because it's almost becoming more and more prevalent nowadays. I mean, between Kenley Jensen and Didi Gregorius, that you mentioned, and there's a bunch of other guys that are from Curacao playing the big leagues now. And Hensley Mullins didn't play that long ago. I mean, at least to me, I'm sure it's before your time, but it was interesting that he was the first, and now it's becoming sort of a trendy, hotbed for baseball.
Absolutely. Sports, they do exist. Billy, please go first.
So a few weeks back, one of the most beloved and respected photographers in New York, Anthony Causi, from the New York Post, he's taken some of the most iconic photos in recent New York sports history, passed away from coronavirus. There were dozens of stories written by his colleagues about him immediately in the aftermath. And a lot of it was talking about how he had this unique way of getting superstars to warm up to him. And, a lot of times in New York in particular, there's so many media demands that there's sort of a back and forth, not necessarily amicable relationship between players and the media, but Anthony had a way of making it work. So just to further illustrate that, yesterday, Robinson Cano and Yoenis Cespedes of the Mets donated money to the foundation that has been set up to support his family now that Anthony has passed away. So that's not something you see every day, something that I thought was definitely worthy of praise. When guys strike out in a big spot or make a big error, they're definitely hammered in the New York papers and things. So I thought it was worthy of acknowledging their philanthropic efforts in this time, and something you don't necessarily see every day with the players and the media having such a playful, friendly relationship. And just one final thing on Anthony Causi, he was from Brooklyn. A couple times a year he'd come out to the Cyclones games. He would come shoot a couple of photos at a game and go grab a slice of pizza at Money Gardens. So he was there a lot, and it's not just our players that are trying to work their way up through the organization and make their way to the big leagues. A lot of the journalists that are covering us and photographers that are covering us, this is sort of their proving ground and getting fine-tuned at their craft, I guess. So Anthony was one of those people who, he was big time, man. He took the pictures of Mariano Rivera coming in from the bullpen, Jeter smacking the "Thank God for making me a Yankee" sign, Eli with his kids at his last game. Like, these are some iconic photos that are going to stand the test of time, and they're all from him. So he had this unbelievable ability to capture the moment, but he also had this unbelievable ability to relate to everybody and realize that he was in this spot one time, and he would take all the photographers that we would be working for us and getting their start, and make sure that he spent some time with them to really help them see different things and different ways of doing things. And there's just one example just this season. We were doing a photo with Andy Chavez and Edgardo Alfonso and some of our players as part of a Venezuelan Independence Day. And we had just, draped the flag over their shoulders, just a standard photo, I guess. And Anthony saw what we were doing, and he came over and he said, no, you should do this. And he laid down on the ground working with one of our photographers for about 10 minutes and was throwing the flag up in the air behind them so that they could get a shot from below with the flag draped up behind them like a superhero. It was like something that we never would have thought of, and something that none of our interns or any of our staff had thought of, but Anthony thought this would be a great shot, and not just told us about it, then sat and took 10 minutes out of his day and was sitting doing it with all of us. So that's the kind of guy that he was, and that's the kind of guy that Robinson and Yoenis saw, and I think it speaks volumes to what this man meant to so many people, that these guys are going out of their way to make sure that his family is supported.
Yeah, well said. I only met him last year when he came to take that same day when he came to take the Andy Chavez photo. The Post wanted to do a feature on him, and Anthony was out in the outfield having Andy recreate the famous catch photo that he originally took that night when they played the Cardinals in the playoffs all those years ago. And he was out there having Andy jump this way, jump that way, taking hundreds of photos just to get the perfect one, and was talking with Andy, and Andy loved him. And that I was one of the connections that I noticed. Like, wow, Andy definitely remembers this guy. You don't see that very often. There's so many photographers and so many media members. But Anthony made such an impact on Andy, and Andy made an impact on Anthony that they had a pretty good relationship. So beautiful story. Speaking of good guys, according to Adam Schefter today, we know about the Red Rocket, the former now Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Andy Dalton. Apparently, he and his wife Jordan, in one kind of final goodbye, donated $150,000. That's not $50, $150,000 to UC Health, the University of Cincinnati Health Network in Ohio. And when this story was reported on, it was 3 days before night one of the NFL draft. So I'm sure Andy had an inkling that the Bengals were going to take Joe Burrow. Obviously, they did. Not very long after that, Andy got released. But a good guy. I mean, knowing where he came from, where he got his start, it didn't matter what the future held. He was going to give back right away. So good guy award for him for that, for sure. And because I always like stories that make you smile a little bit extra. I went to school in Ohio, University of Dayton, Southwest Ohio. So every Sunday morning we watched the Bengals 4 years in a row. So I got to, appreciate Andy a little bit for watching him. And then there's a great story from his foundation, which is where he gave this money from. 2017, Bengals are playing the Ravens. Bills are playing the Dolphins. The Bills have to beat the Dolphins. The Bengals have to beat the Ravens for the Bills to snap their playoff. They've gone 17 years without making the playoffs. So Bills beat the Dolphins. Everybody in Buffalo is watching the Bengals-Ravens game. If the Ravens lose, the Bills go to the playoffs. So there's Dalton, 50 seconds left, down by 3 in Baltimore, leads the comeback, throws a game-winning touchdown. Bengals win. Bills are in the playoffs. And Buffalo goes absolutely nuts and donates like $100,000 to his foundation, saying thank you for beating the Ravens, which is just brilliant. One of the great memories, and just class from Andy Dalton. And I just thought everyone would get a kick out of that story from 2017.
Yeah, it's great to see. He got his start obviously there, and has made a lot of money and had made a great career playing for the Bengals. A lot of playoff appearances. So it's hard to leave, I'm sure, but he's established himself there and has been part of that community. And I mean, you all know football is sort of the biggest thing in Ohio by leaps and bounds. So being the quarterback of a team like the Bengals in a state like Ohio, there's a lot of demands for you and a lot of community involvement. And Andy sort of handled that all very gracefully over the years. And it's a very difficult spot. You're a quarterback that hasn't had a ton of success in terms of winning trophies, but you're getting to the playoffs year after year and has success on the field. But you're always the quarterback. You're always the guy that's going to get the blame when things don't go well. So he handled that all great over the years, and it just seems like a good guy. I remember that Buffalo Bills story, and the money kept flowing in, and he handled that all, and did all his charitable work. And he's just, I've never obviously dealt with him, but he just seems like a good guy and somebody you want to root for sure.
20 episodes, Bill. Did you think we'd see the day?
No, not at all. I was sort of hoping that we'd be back in the office by now, but here we are. This is still fun. Not as good, but a close second, I guess.
Well, everybody enjoy the weekend. We'll be back with Slice of Life on Monday, as now we get into May. Hopefully May just feels a little bit better than April did. But we'll be here every day to hopefully make your quarantine a little bit better. So enjoy the weekend. Enjoy that backyard. I take that cover off that pool. Come on, Bill, get out there. Make us feel good about the summer.
Oh, it's coming soon. Tomorrow's going to be 72 degrees and sunny. So I might just dump it as disgusting as it probably is right now.
All right. See everybody on Monday.
Have a good weekend.